Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Stop Complaining, Work Harder. I'm Carey Davis right here in the Work Harder studios. I am the face for radio. 33 years in the United States government, doing a variety of jobs, 25 of which in management, 27 of which in the Immigration Service or CBP, and another 6 in the Department of Transportation doing hazmat investigations. So I've had a lot of experiences, good and bad, hopefully I can relate a few of those experiences to you so you don't have to go through the things that I went through, which were fun, but a lot of them I wouldn't repeat if I had the experience to stop. So learn from me, learn from my mistakes. Now, stay tuned. We got Bullshit Bingo Roulette at the end of the show. Remember, Bullshit Bingo is where we talk about words that U.S. government employees use to sound smart when they are in fact average. So you'll enjoy this one. We're going to just open the book, drop a finger on a line, and talk about it off the cuff. Today, we're going to talk about negotiating. And this is mostly for managers, but it doesn't have to be managers. Everything in life is a negotiation. Nothing is free. No one willingly gives up things for free. Everything is a give and take, and that's good. That's the way life ought to be. Now, I can't teach you to be a master negotiator in the 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes we're going to talk here. But I can give you some tips, some basic tips, and then go read books. A great one, and I'm not endorsing, truth in front, I get nothing from nobody, so I'm not endorsing anything, but I can tell you how I learned. There's a book by Zig Ziglar on selling, because selling is a negotiation. You're trying to convince someone to do for you or give to you something that they don't want to do. And that's a negotiation. Everything's a negotiation. I think I went in one of my episodes in the past and I talked about how your salary is a negotiation. Your benefits are a negotiation. Your job is a negotiation. You control your life, whether you believe it or not. And you control it through negotiation. When you're working for the government, frankly, some parameters are set for you. Most of the parameters are set for you. But there's always room to negotiate, to talk to someone in a higher level and ask for something and see if you can get it. Now, once you become a manager, I mean, beyond first level supervision, sometimes in first level, but beyond first level, truly your main official negotiation that you're going to walk into, where you sit down, you may have lawyers present, all these things, that's going to be with a union, if you have a unionized staff. And now there's going to be very set rules as to how a union negotiation goes, because it's all going to be delivered by the collective bargaining agreement or the CBA. And remember, everyone, please remember what I told you in one of the first episodes of this. Learn your CBA. Learn it. It's right up there with electronic communication discipline. If you don't know your CBA backwards and forwards, you're failing as a manager. That's like right out of the gate. First thing you should be doing is going home at night, read a chapter of the CBA, set the book down, go read it again. Spend your weekend until you can cite it chapter and verse, because there will come a time when you need it, and the union will know it better than you do, and they will use it to paper whip you into oblivion. And that's because they have nothing else to do but read that damn CBA. And you know what? I've been in situations where I had a non-unionized workforce, and had I had a CBA, it would have controlled situations without me having to lift a finger. So there's a lot of advantages to a CBA and a lot of disadvantages. But that's a whole nother show. Today we're going to talk about the best ways to handle any negotiation. Another one, negotiation, a couple shows ago we talked about EEO grievances, that kind of thing. A lot of times you're going to have to go to a mediation over EEO. And a mediation is simply a negotiation to see if you can settle an EEO grievance informally. It always starts with the informal process. And it may not go there, but a lot of times it does. And there'll be rules for the mediation, and every agency or group has different rules based on whether or not you're dealing with a union or how it's been done by that department in the past. But the lawyers will tell you that. But generally, someone wants something, and you have to decide whether or not you're able to give it to them, or you want to give it to them. Do you want to walk out of this clean so there's nothing in the future, or is it worth your time to keep fighting? That's a decision you've got to make based on the negotiation. So let's just get right into it, and I'll tell you, in any negotiation, in my opinion, eloquence is overrated. And we've had this talk before. The stupidest sounding thing I remember working for government is when non-lawyers tried to sound like a lawyer. When I hear a non-lawyer say "to wit," I'm like, oh geez, we got us an amateur here. The hell's this all about? That's how it is. Don't do that. Speak plainly, speak directly. You never have to say what's on your mind. Remember what I said about 12 angry men and keeping the knife in your pocket? You must keep your emotions and feelings out of it. We'll talk about that in a moment. But, you don't have to say what you're thinking, but you can ask the other party what they're thinking. You can say, what do you want? And if they ask you what you want, tell them, I don't want to be here. I think this is a load of horse shit and I want to walk away. Don't say horse shit. I think this case has no merit. But we're here talking, always giving out. So that's one of the things. So while I'm thinking about it, and it's actually on my list, a hard no, a no where there's no wiggle room. This is always bad. You can't win by saying no. I've tried it. I used to think that a flat no, where there's just kind of a pregnant silence after it in the room. Carey, are you going to go to the grocery store today? No. With no further explanation, just that pregnant silence. Sometimes that can be used for effect. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes it is effective. Most of the time, it is not. It's just not. It doesn't work. It ends a conversation. It cuts off further avenues. Sometimes those avenues are good for you. Sometimes they're not. So is it worth your time, to keep avenues of discussion open? 99% of the time, the answer to that is yes. So instead of a hard no, you would say, that's not the direction we're going to go. Or we were really planning on doing something different. This isn't the area we want to be in. We don't like that space. Yes, there's a lot of bullshit bingo words in there. That's okay. They do have a use. So, you can say, I don't disagree with you, but I'm not quite there yet. Or my favorite, that number's going to be difficult for us. We're not ready for that number. We're not prepared just for that. And then follow it up with, what were you thinking? And they may follow, when you say, that number is going to be difficult for us, they may say, well then, what number works for you? Okay, now you're talking. Now you're negotiating. Now there's wiggle room. It's just, everything has a price, whether that price is money or actions or deeds or time off or God or whatever. Everything can be negotiated. Another great book, obviously, President Trump's President, The Art of the Deal, whether you like him or not, his tips are pretty good. And you can watch it in his everyday actions. Create leverage and then negotiate against that leverage. That's it, basic and simple. Create leverage for yourself, then negotiate using that leverage. If you can put yourself into that position, it's fantastic. You'll hear people say, always negotiate from a position of strength. That's fantastic. Great advice. In the government, rarely does that situation happen. Most of the time in the government, you are in a negotiation because either there's been an accusation somebody did something wrong or you did something wrong. So if you have evidence that creates that position of strength, keep your knife in the pocket. Don't tell them you got the evidence until you absolutely have to, or until it can be used for its greatest effect. You'll know when that is. Have discussions with counsel about that. Okay? So, being eloquent, just say what you mean. Now, so one of my favorite things to do at the beginning of any negotiation is to ask the obvious. They may have written it down. They may have sent you a letter. They may have told you straight up, but ask in front of counsel while it's being transcribed, while you're in the room, what do you want? What is it you're looking to get? What does victory look like for you? And then have them tell you. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times they will undervalue what they want. Get it out in the open. So in any negotiation, both sides are looking for something. And I was taught this decades ago, and it's absolutely true every single time. If you want, let's say, for example, let's say you want 10 of something. whatever that something is, 10 widgets, and you're negotiating with a supplier. And you say, I need 10 widgets in 1 month. If you say I need 10 widgets in 1 month, you've just created a starting point where they're going to negotiate you down to 7. And did you get what you wanted? No. No, you did not. So why say you want 10? I want 20 widgets in 1 month. Now, the other side of the table may be, we don't have the manufacturing capacity for that. That's craziness. Okay. They've countered what you said. Now you counter back. Okay, you say you can't do this in the time period I've allotted. What can you do? How many can you make? Now, in the backs of their minds. So let me face this. Let me start by saying, as Americans, we are raised to have empathy. A lot of countries aren't, but we as Americans are raised to have empathy. And that's why we have lawyers, because lawyers, there's a reason they compare lawyers to sharks. They have no emotion. That's their job, is to have no emotion and negotiate coldly on their client, hopefully you's behalf. So you, in negotiation, should lose your empathy. You can look like you can have empathy. You can act like you have empathy, but you don't need empathy. You need cold, hard results. That's how negotiations work. So when they say, how many do you need? And you need 10 in a month. You say, I want 20 in a month. That's what I'm looking for. And they'll say, oh my God. And so the reason I say about empathy, they're going to say, we don't have the capacity for that. There's no way we can make 20 in a month. Okay. Well, how many can you make? Don't say, well, then can you do 15? Because now you just lowered what you needed. You see what I'm saying? So you say, okay, well, what can you do? Normally, because they have empathy, they're going to come back and they're going to say something like, well, maybe we can do 12. You only wanted 10 to begin with. Now you're getting 12. Okay, I can do that. That's reasonable. You don't go, woohoo, I got you. I got you. I really only wanted 10. I was lying. Don't ever say that. That's stupid. That's crap you see on television. Don't do that. The answer is, well, maybe I can do 12 for you. That'd be fantastic. Now you got 12 widgets instead of 10 in the same time frame. Or if they lowball it and say, look, the most I can do is 7, that's probably an honest answer based on their real capacity. But your answer is, 7, it's not going to be enough. Can you make it 11? Okay, well, that's reasonable. Maybe we can land there. And now you got 11. Worst case scenario, they counter your 11 with 10. But you keep negotiating until you get what you really wanted. And then you begrudgingly settle for that number or more. That's the key to a good negotiation. Every time they've gotten what they want, they're going to walk away happy. Whew, glad we didn't tell them we could do 20. We'd be killing ourselves. And you got what you wanted because you really wanted 10 and you wound up with 12. Everybody walks away from a negotiation happy. This is a win-win. You can't beat this. It's the best thing in the world. And all you did was ask for more than you wanted. It's a fantastic tactic. It works. It's something you can put into your everyday life. Okay? Just think about it. I'm not going to tell you how, but think about it. It's an extremely successful strategy. I'll tell you this. Years ago with Customs, I was with, say, a very high-level official who was negotiating work we were going to do overseas. And it was with a country that's very well known for their negotiating skills. And I wasn't involved in the negotiation, but I watched him, and he went over. And because as Americans we have empathy, they used that against the American negotiating side. And they basically browbeat the negotiating team into almost nothing, basically bastardizing the original ask into something that was a shell of what it could have been. And it was all because when you have empathy and the other side doesn't, they'll see it immediately and they'll use it for everything it's worth. My good friends in Holland don't get upset with me. Truth be told, I lived there for about 5 years. Fantastic, greatest experience of my life. Some of the greatest people I've ever known. But they have a negotiating tactic I saw them use over and over and over again, and that was they would commit to something verbally, and then they would wait until the United States became, or any person they were negotiating with, would become politically or economically committed to that. And by committed, I mean you can't. They know there's a point where you can't back out. Money has been spent. You have gone to your bosses or before Congress and said, "We are getting this done. We're going to do this. The partner country is on board, and we're going to do this." And you're now committed. And then as soon as you're committed, they change what they want. They add things. They subtract things. They make it difficult. They use the leverage they have because even though the Netherlands is a small country, they're extremely business savvy and a lot of the world's commerce travels through them. And they know that they have leverage. So they're smart. They change the rules. And because we are economically or politically committed, we have to go with the flow. And we've just been negotiated with without being negotiated with. We were leveraged. And I watched it happening. And I went to this supervisor and I said, "Boss, I'm not involved in this, but I'd like to give you a touch of advice. Would you mind it if I gave you some advice?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely, Carey." I said, "You need to fold your cards and walk away." I said, "If you walk away, as you walk away, this other country will turn around and give you whatever you want because they are economically and politically committed to this project. They're just not acting like it." And he said, "Oh, no, we can't do that. This is all good faith, and blah, blah, blah. There's no such thing." And I watched him Pollyanna his way to the point that finally the deal that was cut was unacceptable to everyone. It was never implemented. It just died on the vine after years of negotiation. And this is what happens when we let our better nature get hold of us. So again, this goes back to lawyers. This is why lawyers exist. It's why they're compared to sharks. I think I said it earlier. Their job is to be unempathetic and have no feelings and negotiate on behalf of their client. Now, again, any negotiation where everybody can walk away happy is a good one. It's a winner. And lawyers many times do create that result. But a lawyer, when someone says, "Well, I got kids at school and my wife's sick," and all this, anybody that's ever been divorced will know that lawyer said, "Yeah, I want your money." Because they don't care. They don't care about you. They're not swayed by emotions. They do not have the empathy. Well, they have the empathy. I'm not saying they don't, but they don't show the empathy that would hurt their case. And that is extremely difficult for most people to do. There's an old saying, the lawyer, the biggest fool is a lawyer that represents himself, something like that. I'm not sure. But the point is, if you represent yourself, you can get tied up in the emotion. You are pissed off. They're not negotiating in good faith. You're pissed off. You're emotional. You feel sorry for them. You want them to feel sorry for you. You think by telling them a sad story that they'll feel sorry for you and give you what you want when you're dealing with lawyers who don't care. It's not a good tactic, boys and girls. Hope is never a strategy, as has been said before. So the answer is, if you have the means, hire a lawyer. If you work for the government, make your counsel come with you. Now, this is something I can't stress enough. If you're going to a negotiation and you're a U.S. government manager, and this is true in the civilian world too, or in your personal life, if you're going to a negotiation and the other side is bringing lawyers, and you do not bring a lawyer, you are being stupid. Particularly in government where the lawyer costs you nothing. They're there. They have a job for a reason. So I had a policy when I was in Washington that, let's say, some immigrant rights groups, I did immigration work, so some immigrants' right group would call me up and I would talk to them. That was my job. But if the immigrant rights group had a lawyer call me, I would literally tell them, "Look, we're going to have a conversation, but let me bring my counsel in on this." Because when you are not a lawyer, I don't care how smart you are, and you're talking to a lawyer, they will always use what you say to turn you against yourself. You will lose. That is their job. That's why they get paid. Okay? So bring your counsel in and have them represent the agency, because that's what you're doing when you have a negotiation as a manager. You're representing the agency. So let counsel do their job. You may not agree with what they say. You may have to have words with them afterwards. But at the end of the day, let counsel do their job, please. And that's the other thing. And it goes back to what I was saying about that negotiation with a foreign country. Never, ever, under any circumstances, go into a negotiation where you're not willing to walk away at any moment. If you feel like the other side's being disingenuous, or you're not going to win, or you're being put into a position where you're not comfortable, politely walk away. You don't have to shoot them a bird and call them names. Even when it's the union and you hate their guts and they hate you, you say, ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe we should continue today. Let's set a date for another meeting, and let's close it out. And if they say, no, we want to keep talking, you say, we're going to close it out today. Have a nice day. And I don't care which side of them. If you're the union steward and this goes on, you can stop the meeting. We're not going to talk anymore. We need to meet again. This isn't going the direction we need to. Or we're not happy right now, but we need to, or let us talk amongst ourselves. Let's get together tomorrow. Something. But you only say this is done and we're done negotiating, and that's it, the hard no, the closed door, when the time is appropriate. And you'll know that. But 90% of the time, when you just need to walk away, reschedule the negotiation. Let's do this again next week. Or if it is a hard no and you're just walking out, say it out front. This is like boyfriend-girlfriends that break up. One or the other or both doesn't have the guts just to pull the trigger and break up with each other. Okay? So they do a soft breakups. Honey, I think we need a little time apart. That means I'm going to go find some other dude. That's what that means. Anytime, I think we should spend some time apart. You're going down a steep path. That's been my experience. So, and dudes do it all the time. It's not you, it's me. No, it's you. I'm breaking up with you because you and I we're not compatible. It's us. We're just not working. But people don't have the nuggets to do the right thing, right? So when you're in a negotiation and they've twisted everything and made it so there's no way for you to even get a semblance of what you want, you just say, you know what? This isn't going to work. We'll see you next time. Or this isn't going to work. Thanks for coming in. Have a great day. Negotiations are closed. Now, I did that once, and it's funny, we actually won the court case, but the first thing they said on the other side of the aisle was, we're going to court. And I said, okay, bring it. Well, I was stupid because what I didn't know was this was the early 2000s, and DHS had run off all the immigration lawyers, and basically all but one lawyer that worked for CBP at the time were customs attorneys, which is great if you're dealing with a trade deal. But when you're dealing with an immigration deal, suddenly you've just thrown a whole lot of weight on that attorney's shoulders. Luckily, the Justice Department stepped in and we won that case, which was very surprising, but we did. But anyways, just know your territory. But when it's time to break up, when it's time to say the negotiation's over, cut it off. Walk away and let the other side know we're done talking. Let's go to court. Let's go to arbitration. Let's go do something else other than this. Or take it or leave. You can put a take it or leave it out there. An all in. For those that play poker, all in. This is what I want, and I can't accept anything less than this. And let them say no. Now, I'll close out with negotiations by saying this. Never, ever, 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 ever refuse to talk. Your job as a manager is to talk to people. Your job as the representative of the agency is to be open to discussion. Okay? If you say, I ain't talking to that guy, you never had the discussion. You shut it off before it could ever start. Now that guy is going to come back when he goes to court and said, that person wouldn't even talk to me. The agency wouldn't even speak to me about this. You've just put the agency in a horrible situation. Maybe yourself. But no matter what, whoever you're negotiating for now has no excuse. How did it get all the way to court? Well, Carey wouldn't talk to me. You just lost. You just lost. Straight up. And another never ever that goes on forever, electronic communications discipline. Don't you dare, under any circumstances, talk about the negotiation, the progress, or where it's going via electronic communications in any way, shape, or form. And if you put it in writing, understand that it'll be FOIA'd. The public will see it. Do not call names. Be cold and calculating. If you have to describe negotiations to your boss or someone else, do it factually, based on notes that you took at the time. Do not make stuff up. Don't talk bad about people. Don't try to make projections on what they might do. Don't talk about strategy. Just say, these three people were in the room. We discussed this. We did not come to an outcome. We're meeting again next week. Period. End of story. That's your report. And if the boss wants to know more, do it in the room, in person, and talk to him about it. Then you can have a much better conversation, and your boss will have a much better understanding of what happened. So that's my quick 20-minute chat about negotiating. It is an art. There's thousands of books written about it, and thousands of people much better than I ever was. But the fact is, if you remain plain-spoken, ask what they want, negotiate, meet somewhere in the middle, raise your stakes a little bit, and then always be willing to walk away. Always be willing to walk away. And don't ever think that I'm telling you to give in. Don't give in. If you don't want to give in, if you can't give in, do not give in. But don't say it in a way where it sounds like you're just throwing a wall up. Don't give in. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, this is something that aggravated the shit out of me. The British don't like to say no. They're kind of like Americans that way. They're nice people down deep, so they don't want to say no to you. So a negotiating tactic with the Brits is to say, we agree in principle, let's have another meeting. And then they'll continue to have that next meeting over and over and over, hoping that you'll give up. Not a fan of that. End it. You know, that's really not going to work for us. We'd love to help you out, but that's not something that's on our plate right now. Everybody walks away happy. You made the ask. You didn't get what you wanted. You can be persistent. You can do it again. But I spent 6 months going to meetings with the Brits where they agreed in principle. And I was naive enough to think that meant that they agreed in principle. No, it means they don't wish to say no. Now, the Dutch are very different. They'll use a phrase called hele niet normaal, which means not unusual. It really translates to unusual. And once you hear them say that, go home. Go to the bar, have a beer. You're done. Don't ever ask again. Anyway, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of fun stuff. I always enjoyed a good negotiation because it gave me an opportunity to talk with people in a way that you don't get to normally. Now, what I'm going to do now, I've got the book. The book with 3 years worth of bullshit words I heard government employees say to try to sound smart when in fact they are average. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play bullshit bingo roulette. And I'm just going to hold the book up. I'm going to throw my finger down wherever it lands. That will be the bullshit bingo of the word of the day. 1, 2, 3, eyes closed, and ooh, equity. Equity, that's a great one. Equity is a fantastic bullshit bingo word. So equity means, are you involved in something? Have you written a paper about it? Are you part of that negotiation? Are you on that team? Are you working on that project? Do you have equity in that? Normally we would say, oh man, you've owned a house 10 years. How much equity have you built? How much of that house do you own as opposed to the mortgage company? Well, about 30% of the asking price is my equity now. Or man, the market's gone up so much and houses have become so expensive. I've got more equity in that house than I paid for it. Well, this is a good thing, right? Well, you'll be in a meeting and they'll start talking about Project A and your boss will go, Davis, do you have equity in this? Or, boss, I've been working with DEA, and we found some items where CBP has equity. It doesn't mean we're equal. It doesn't mean 100 things. It just means that we have a common interest, or we've been working on that ourselves. So again, it's a word that's unnecessary. It's not how you talk to your kids. You don't go home at night and say, hey, what'd you do in science today? Well, there's a science fair next week, Daddy. And you say, oh, do you have equity in it? No, it is not. That's not how normal English-speaking people talk. It's a bullshit word they made up. And it may not have even come from Washington. It may have come from the private sector. Don't know, don't care. Horse shit douchebaggery. And with that, thanks for tuning in. If you like us, hit the like button, subscribe. I do this every week. I think this is episode 17. Hopefully you can get something out of it. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. That's why I'm throwing it out there. If you stuck around with us this long, I appreciate your time. If you didn't, go fuck yourself. It's all good. Hey, everybody, we'll see you next time. Davis out.